All right, welcome back to the channel. We have an update for you guys on this 1975 Nissan Skyline Kenmeri with an RB26. The last time you guys saw this car, it was actually the build breakdown before it went into primer, body, paint, rust repair, everything that it took to get to this point. From that video forward, we took off all the chrome trim, whatever was replaceable and available new, we obtained that part. If it wasn't available new, we sent out what we had to get the dents removed, to get everything straightened, polished, or chromed, whatever it is. If it's stainless, it gets repolished. If it's chrome, it gets redipped and refreshed. As you see it right now, this car is just on another level with the work VSXX that were custom rebarreled by Jack over at VR Wheels and the crew over there. It's got a custom gold center finish right now. That's still kind of an up in the air finish for this wheel. We might change that up later. It's a little bit too yellow of a gold, but the wheel color might actually change to more of a darker, closer to a bronze tint than a gold tint. The motor is fully forged. It's built essentially in the same state it was during that build breakdown, but everything that takes to get to the finish line on this car is now all the finer details. So putting the wire harness the way it was when it was at Richard's place, that's not happening. We don't want an old crusty looking wiring harness. So we're refinishing that entire harness complete, but we're using all the OEM guts and length of it to figure out where we're gonna place the factory relays and all the items that go along with this car, because this is a factory AC car with power windows. Now, we've added some more amenities to it. It has full power steering now. So it's got an R32 subframe in the front with mix and match R32 and S13 suspension. It's running Apexy coilovers front and rear. It's a custom rear setup, one-off, made by them for this project specifically. Again, huge shout out and thank you guys to the Apexy crew. Always willing to be on board with these crazy projects that we come up with. It's just cool bringing a new school brand into this old school car. It's not gonna drive like an old school car anymore because, like I said, AC, power steering, power windows, all the amenities you can want. Who wants power seats? That shit sucks. They're too slow to move. So manual seats will forever be the way.
As it should always be. This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
The interior that you see in the car right now, it's got that brown tint to it. That's how it came when we got the car. But that's something that we're gonna go ahead and touch on later because I do have new Datsun style competition seats for the front of the car. And then we're gonna go ahead and probably reach out to Alex over at MST to get the door panels, the rear quarter cards, and the rear seats all handled to match the look of the front of the seats. So looking at the bay, this is our air-to-water intercooler, and underneath this system is where that relay panel unit used to rest. Now, obviously this is here. This takes precedence, so we need to move the wiring around to figure out where everything's gonna fit and be built to suit, essentially. That whole relay panel is dismantled now, and it's gonna be tucked and hidden under the brake master cylinder and the brake booster. So all this will have a plate, so you will no longer see this anymore. It did all get re-loomed. This is gonna have a cover. Like I said, the booster goes here, the brake master cylinder goes here. All this stuff is gonna be covered up, so it's not much of an eyesore. Kind of how it was originally, it just had a black plate covering it also. We'll probably either color match something or make it something like this where it's gusseted and follows the theme of the rest of the car. On that side that's missing now was the catch can, so that's got to go out to polish or powder coat. These aren't the valve covers that you saw before because it has the original fittings. The valve covers for this car are actually currently off to powder coat, and we have to go there on Monday to figure out what color those are going to be. Originally, we were going to do the valve cover, the centerpiece, and that front piece to match the color of the wheels, but now that we're unsure about the color of the wheels, this whole setup might be its own standalone setup and just pick a one-off color that doesn't really have to tie in with any of the other pieces. One of the options is like the M-Spec Nur, like gold or champagne. I know that the Nismo Omori factory did that actually later on in a textured finish, where during the time that they were producing those motors, it was actually just like a metallic gloss finish and not the wrinkle texture. The wrinkle texture might be possible if that color exists or if they can make the blend of it, but I don't generally like wrinkle finish for engine bays only because you get dust and road debris and stuff in the engine bay and then it becomes really hard to clean, especially with a lighter color like gold or champagne. Yeah, red won't hit that good. Candy red, like the R34 motor, I think isn't the right choice. The other option would be to fucking just go ham and just bill it. Then if we do that, then I think everything else around it needs to be dumbed down. So then this is your jewelry stone, and then this is all like your accessories. But like tone this down. This era of car, it was either satin trim black or they also did like an argent gray, like on the 240Zs, like their hubcap is an argent gray centered. They did actually do that on the grill, so that's an option. Just make this super bright and then just argent gray everything else. But yeah, it's like now we're at this point where we need to finalize all the pieces, get all the labels back, all these little plastic covers and the cubby covers, and it's just the final details is what takes so long for this thing to really get to the next step before we even get it running. It kind of sucks to get it running and have all that done and do all that work, and then you still have to lean over it and get all those details done. Once it's running and tuned, that's it. You're good to go. Charge the AC and off you go. Just like take it out for the weekend, enjoy it, really know what it feels like to have new modern horsepower in a classic car with all the modern running gear underneath, which is nothing new. We've been doing this shit on old Datsuns and Nissans forever. Doing it on the Roadrunner, like that car drives absolutely amazing with new running gear. The modern stuff that's available now compared to 15 years ago when we were building these cars is just, it's a world of difference. So this new suspension geometry, having like a full R and S chassis suspension geometry on the front of this old car is so freaking rad, because the difference between this car and the Hakko is gonna have like no caster. Completely different from what we're used to setting up. Most of the cars we set up out of the shop and drive, they're at least 5 degrees of caster. The Hakko has 1.5. Because of the way the geometry is set up on that car and the wheel fitment, the way everything moves, now converting it to front steer, it's all changed, it's all different. This one is a rear steer rack and pinion from a right-hand drive R32. I mean, even with stock knuckles, this has world's amount of angle compared to that Hakko. This is gonna be so much nicer to drive around. Of course, because it has power steering, so you don't need a 15-inch steering wheel to have like big meats in the front. So the Hakko, you're gonna need smaller, skinnier tires that have a smaller diameter, less sticky, so that way you can drive it around town and park it. But this car with power steering, you don't have to worry about anything. You just drive and enjoy it. This isn't like the traditional way that we generally build our turbo cars. We don't generally do air-to-water intercooler, but after seeing countless dynos from Danny at Unrivaled and all the MR2s that he does that are air-to-water intercooler with their motors in the back because they're not getting any airflow through those ducts to their intercooler, he's like, dude, air-to-water intercooler is a night and day difference. The consistency of how good the IATs stay at with an air-to-water intercooler is just, it's bar none. Like, you can't compare it from an air-to-air intercooler because of the amount of heat that's here. If you have a radiator cooling your intake air temps, it's so much better than just an air-to-air, especially if you're restricted on space and avoiding wanting to cut up the whole front header panel of this car. On an older car, something as nostalgic and rare as this 1975 Skyline, we wanted to avoid making new holes. All the holes that you see in the engine bay on this radiator support, there's all new brackets to support new parts, but using existing holes. So that was the goal with this. It was to not hack up the whole front end of this car to fit an intercooler or do like that crazy spec like front mounted oil cooler with the line. We didn't want that with the intercooler. We've seen that on other cars and it's not our style. If it's executed properly, it can look cool. I don't know. I prefer like this subtle, sleek thing, because then when you pop the hood, you're just like, oh shit, okay, you made it work without hacking it. If you have to hack it up and show it, then cool. Like if you can make it look good as a whole package, then cool. But this is our style and how we want to go about this car. Next time, hopefully we'll see this thing fire up for the first time and be on its way to the dyno. All right, so that wraps it up for the update on the Kenmeri. The next time you see this thing, it's going to be rolling and starting under its own power, so we'll catch you guys at the dyno. So, as it sits right... bitch. You done. We really put it on pause because of all the fast franchise stuff.
Yeah. You mean...
Like, if it wasn't that fucking behemoth of a nightmare. But yeah, like this motor, the motor that's in the orange Supra is rebuilt by us. But it's like the Japanese stuff, we have a handle on it. We didn't touch that one because, like, why learn on ours, like, the first time out? Like, pay somebody that knows what they're doing, supposedly.
Ideally.
Ideally.